good evening, good people. On behalf of our interim director, Ingrid Betancourt, Board of Trustees President, Dr. Lauren Wells, and Newark Public Library, I want to thank you all for joining us for our annual Black History Month celebration, our first in-person celebration since 2020. As always, before we proceed, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Lenni Lenape First Nations on which we are learning, laboring, and organizing today. So this year, this program, we celebrate the excellent work of several Black photographers who have and continue to capture the rich spectrum of life, not only here in Newark, but throughout New Jersey and in cities like New Orleans, spotlighting and reflecting our joy, resistance, and resilience amongst so much more through their images. And of course, as we have been reminded in recent months, but also been knowing for much longer than that, it is important to not only frame and tell our stories, but also to document and preserve this history. So, we salute our Black photographers who sort of add the visual language to the sort of rich body of history that still things we kind of preserve and things we're still learning. On with that, so we can move along, I want to acknowledge the hard work of my colleagues here in the James Brown African American Room and in the Charles F. Cummings, New Jersey Information Center for helping bring this year's exhibit and programs to fruition. So if you could please just give them a hand. A special, particularly thank you for Tom Ankner, who actually is my introduction to the work of Bill May, and which I think initially was going to be a much smaller exhibit, sort of blossomed and organically grew into what we have this evening. So thank you again, Tom, for planting that seed, and then we watched it grow. So thank you. Humbly posted up in the back there. Also, we are beyond grateful for the contributions of the PNC Foundation, who have helped us make this year and previous year's celebrations possible. So we thank you wholeheartedly and for your continued support and previous support. So please give them round of applause as well. All right. With that, I want to thank you all again for showing up tonight. And it's my honor to bring Library Board of Trustees member and head of the Friends of the James Brown African American Room, Dr. Anasa Mott, up to say a few words. So please join me in welcoming her to the front.
Thanks, Reggie. Okay, on behalf of the Newark Public Library's Board of Directors, or I should say Board of Trustees, I want to welcome all of you to the beautiful James Brown African American Room for the opening of the 2023 Black History Month celebration. James, I knew him personally. He would be so proud knowing that all of his efforts to expand the African American collection here and the programming focusing on African Americans at the Newark Public Library culminated in the creation of this beautiful room. As a trustee of the Newark Public Library and founding member of the Friends of JBAR, I invite you to regularly check out the Newark Public Library's calendar of events, and you'll see that February is not the only month that we have programming focused on the achievements and the achievements of the Black Americans and the Black American experience in America. The Newark Public Library has a vested interest in Newark and the Newark community. And we make every effort to celebrate the diversity of our city by providing you with programming that will answer questions for you about who we are as a people, where we are in our development, where we are going, and what we can do to help make this great city what we want it to be. We have 4 friends groups that you may want to consider becoming a member of. The Friends of J-Bar, the Friends of HRIC, the Hispanic Resource and Information Center, the Friends of the Philip Roth Room, and the Friends of the Newark Public Library. We all take great pride in working with the library staff to make the Newark Public Library not only the best library in the state, but one of the best in the country. Thank you. Our program today, focusing on a phenomenal Bill Mays, a wonderful musician turned photographer, will help to convince you, if you are not already convinced, that the Newark Public Library is the place to be. I want to acknowledge in our group another board member, our president, Lauren Wells. Lauren is somewhere, raise your hand, Lauren. So, okay, all the way in the back there, hiding out. And I'm going to turn the mic over to our interim director of special collections, Ms. Dale Colston. Here she is. Thank you all.
Good evening, and thank you, Dr. Mott. Hi, Bill. There's Bill on camera there. Just waving to us. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mott, for your kind introduction. Everybody and every organization needs best friends, and we are so happy to call PNC one of ours. And tonight, we're honored to have Bill Best, who's Senior Vice President, Northeast Market Manager at PNC, joining us. He's a champion of PNC's commitment to creating opportunities that can accelerate growth and prosperity for low to moderate income segments, including community and economic development corporations, small businesses, and women and minority-owned enterprises in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, and Boston. And PNC's pledge to its communities is evident in its support of the library's annual Black History Month celebration. We thank you. Now back to our PNC guest. Bill expanded his already impressive overview of economic conditions and needs in the state when he served as the first executive director of New Jersey Development Authority, a government-appointed role under 3 administrations. He then returned to PNC and to numerous extracurricular activities, including chair of the Rutgers University Board of Governors and on boards and committees for the Newark Regional Business Partnership, New Jersey Regional Plan Association, and Newark Alliance. Bill earned his BS in Business Administration from North Carolina Central University and completed the Harvard University JFK School of Government's Executive Leadership Program. Now, let's all welcome Bill Best, NPL's Community Partner Extraordinaire.
Good evening, everyone. That last part she said was extraordinaire. My mother would definitely not have agreed with that one, I can tell you. Thank you for that introduction, Dale. I'm excited to be here on behalf of my PNC bank colleagues in New Jersey. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this evening's Black History Month opening celebration. Unfortunately, our regional president, Enrico Della Corna, is out of town on business and cannot join us today. I'm sure he would have loved to have been here. Before I continue, I would like to extend a note of congratulations to the library team for planning a terrific series of Black History Month celebrations. Organizing these events, whether it's virtual or gathering, is no easy task. So thank you to the library team for all the hard work that you do. I do thank you. I thank you for also being a host and to deliver a wonderful series of Black History Month events. It is hard to believe that it's been 16 years that PNC has been sponsoring the Newark Public Library Black History Month celebration. We have been long-standing and passionate about our commitment to the library and to Newark. We love Brick City's diverse communities and of course, the opportunity to come together with our community. Community is a core constituent of PNC, and we value the established relationships over the years. What better way to bring together than by coming here at the library to hear and learn more about a truly unique American art form, jazz, and to look at it literally through the lens of photography. Jazz, and this is an art form, is right at home in Newark, whether it's WBGO or NJPAC and other venues across the city. And there's a great conversation ahead of us with Bill May. So why is PNC invested in the library or Newark or Black History Month? Well, it's simply the right thing to do, and we are doing it at the right time. PNC is committed to embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we have the privilege of working with residents and business owners across our diverse state. We welcome the opportunity to work with our friends and neighbors in the range of communities and neighborhoods. And this is another chance for us to celebrate with you. As Dr. King once said, everybody can be great because anybody can serve. The Newark Public Library is a great institution that continues to serve its community. So on behalf of my PNC colleagues, we extend a sincere thank you and for another opportunity to be with you as we gather here tonight in person. Now, we look forward to an incredible conversation of imagery and artistry of Bill May. Enjoy your evening, and thank you very much for showing up.
All right, so to move along here, if I have to sit here and give a full rundown of our esteemed guest bona fides, we'd honestly, we wouldn't get to hear him speak tonight. So, I'll do my best to keep this brief, but I could start with Brother Wayne Winborne here. Winborne is Executive Director of the Institute of Jazz Studies at Rutgers University, Newark. IJS houses the largest and most comprehensive archive and library of jazz and jazz-related materials in the world. So we have that in our backyard. We are blessed. He is producer of the Arts, Culture, and Media Department, and frequently a presenter on jazz and various culture talks throughout the city and abroad. He has numerous publications and music production credits to his name. Rumor has it he ghost produced for Quincy Jones, and maybe a rumor. You can ask him during the Q&A. Last but absolutely not least, he can often be found right next door hosting events in one of the best spaces to see live jazz here in Newark, Clem's Place, named so for the beloved historian, great Dr. Clement Price. You may not even need to step in from outside before hearing Wayne passionately introduce, interview, and drop science on jazz past, present, and future in between some legendary performances. So please give it up for Brother Wayne Winborne. I get winded up here reading these, but Miss Dorthaan Kirk. Miss Dorthaan Kirk is the absolute definition of an icon. Lovingly and rightfully acknowledged as Newark's First Lady of Jazz, Ms. Kirk is also the recipient of the A.B. Spellman NEA Jazz Masters Award for Jazz Advocacy. Literal jazz masters. Salute, salute, salute. Ms. Kirk was also integral in coordinating the amazing Jazz Vespers, a free of charge monthly event that takes place at the historic Bethany Baptist Church here in Newark. and has featured a number of, Vespers has featured a number of legendary performers. From her work at WBGO to her continual support of the arts, she is a true beacon of light here in Newark. So we're honored to have you here today. And of course, the gentleman we are here to celebrate is framed on the screen here behind us. It's kind of fitting given the theme of this year. Brother Bill May, Mr. Bill May, please put it up. Mr. May's photos make up our main exhibit for this year. They're out in the main foyer. If you haven't gotten a chance to see them, they will be up for a while. Please just make time to see them. They display a rich Newark, it's a wealth of history out there, born out of a rich Newark jazz scene, witnessed and preserved firsthand by Mr. May, who was a musician himself. He did a lot of other things too, but I am truly winded and I've talked a lot enough. These folks, and let them get into it. I'm just as excited to hear them talk. So please join me again in welcoming Mr. May, and let y'all take it away.
Good evening and thank you all. It's an honor to be here with you. Really want to thank Reggie and everyone at the library for this wonderful kickoff. It's going to be a great conversation. Unlike that young man, I do not get tired from talking. But fortunately, you did not. I was told my role here was to play traffic cop because our two esteemed guests are longtime friends. They each have such a rich history and a wealth of information to share with us. And they apparently, as Lady Kay said to me earlier, we do this weekly. So my job is to stay out of the way. But let me kick it off. I may not talk again for another hour because they really have so much to say. Bill, welcome. If you wouldn't mind, tell us where you are, and then tell us a little bit about you and your family's journey from your homeland in Headland, Alabama, up here to beautiful Newark, New Jersey.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out on such a chilly evening. I want to, first of all, thank everybody at the library for all the work they've done to make this evening possible, especially Tom Ankner, who has decided that my work was worthy enough to be on exhibition here in the, or there, in the Newark Public Library. And interestingly enough, from what I can see, Tom has kind of curated really a Newark jazz exhibition. Right now, I'd like to also say welcome from, where am I? Vine Grove, Kentucky. Bet you can't find it on the map. And I've been here for about 3 months, and here I am. Concerning my family, I'm going to say our because I'm not, I have at least one sibling left. So I'm going to say our dad was born in 1914 in Alabama, and our mom was born also in Alabama in 1915. They both attended, won't necessarily say a segregated school, but they both attended a Rosenwald school. So if you are familiar with the term Rosenwald school, you'll know what I'm talking about. We, as a family, got to Newark all together because we came in phases. We got here at about 1950, and we ended up on Quitman Street. And I attended public school here in Newark. Monmouth Street School was the elementary school. Then I also attended what was then a junior high school, West Kennedy Junior High School, then on to the best, the very, very best high school in the city of Newark, Southside High School. Where there were Southsiders in the audience. There are no Southsiders there. How about Malcolm X Shabazz? That's the name of the school now. So, I mean, that's our basic journey. My dad, or our dad, learned piano as a young boy in Alabama, and he used that skill to move up into the world. In the Army, he led a group of African-American soldiers in the 366th Infantry. And after the war, he had a nice job working right across the street from the library in the finance division at the Veterans Administration. And so here we are. And that's basically the family journey. Maybe some more details will come out depending upon the questions that are asked.
Yes, now Bill, say just a little bit more, because your father, in fact, was a classically trained pianist and was quite accomplished. Is that right?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. As a matter of fact, just very recently, the son of one of my dad's colleagues in the 366th Infantry sent me a paper clipping from the 1940s when they were in Italy during the Second World War. And my dad was interviewed because of the Glee Club that he had created there. And he talked about he wanted to, once he got out of the military, attend Juilliard. But after a while, when he discovered he had 4 children to support, that dream kind of faded away. But he did continue his education. But he, well, his post-high school education, he's credited, according to the late Robert Banks, with bringing the Messiah to the Black churches in Newark and all of Essex County. So if you're around at Christmas time, you can think about that. He accompanied a lot of singers, local singers. And in that process, we were able to hear, our mother, me and my siblings, we were able to hear all kinds of music in the house, from opera arias to some James Cleveland get down gospel, everything in between. Right there in our house with our dad playing the piano, accompanying soloists, sometimes accompanying a group of singers that he called the Eastern Choraliers. And these were male members of the Mount Calvary Baptist Church in Newark. And they were kind of a throwback to his time in the Army when he had the Glee Club there in the 366.
And you started playing yourself when you were very young, but you didn't start on the bass, which would become your principal instrument, right?
No, I didn't. In Newark back then, in the 4th grade, you could choose a musical instrument if you wanted to play one. And my choice was a trumpet. The music teacher, Louis Sutera, told me at the time, he said, well, we don't have any trumpets, but would you play the violin until we get a trumpet? And that was in the 4th grade. And I was at Mama Street School through the 7th grade. And I saw trumpet players come and go, but I never got a trumpet. So I continued with the violin. And that even happened when I went to West Kenny. I played violin. I went to Southside at, from West Kenny, we moved to the other side of town. We moved to the South Ward. So I transferred to Clinton Place Junior High School, which is now University High School. And that's where I started the double bass. And I continued with the double bass through high school, and studied privately with Dr. William Weiss, and ended up a music major at Montclair State, and just kept playing the bass.
And so how did you transition from, so you're a bass player, you started playing jazz with some friends. These are the stories. I've done a little homework on you, as you know. You started playing jazz with friends in high school, but you're going through Montclair State, you come back to Newark to work. How do you make the transition from being a full-time bassist, I assume with the intention of making your living as a musician, to a budding photographer who will become the giant that we all know today?
I'm not sure if you did your homework, all of your homework, because there's a gap. I was never, strike that. I was not a full-time musician until I retired from the Newark Public Schools.
Right.
I made the music work around my schedule. As after graduating from Montclair State, I taught in the Newark Public Schools. I taught music in the district. And being ideally placed in Newark, like so many of the jazz people from Newark, New York was right across the river. From where we lived on Quitman Street, I could stand on the corner of Quitman and Spruce Street and look east, and look right at the New York City skyline. And I used that was my guide. I mean, so I could teach during the day, I could gig during the night when I thought I was a jazz bassist. And I don't know if you want me to get there to my other part, to the classical right now, but I will if you want me to.
Whatever you want to do. It's jazz.
Okay. Well, I discovered after a while, and I was working with a group in Hackensack at what was called the Craftsman's Lounge. And I decided that night when I'm playing, and I said, I'm not a jazz bass player. And I went back to what I was trained to do. I was trained as a classical musician. And I have to go now back just a little bit more, because in studying with Dr. Weiss, that's where I started to play more classical music. And in 1967, I decided to join, between my junior and senior year in college, I decided to join the Musicians Union. And I auditioned for the Musicians Union. At that time, you had to audition. Just didn't, come in and say, I want to join a union and pay some money. You had to demonstrate some instrumental proficiency. So what I did, I played a double bass arrangement of a Bach cello suite. At the end of the audition, the then president of the union, Local 16, the late Danny Hope, asked me for the following Wednesday to go over to Branch Brook Park and listen to the Newark Symphony. And the Newark Symphony was nothing but the New Jersey Symphony on its summer break. And he asked me to listen to the music and find out, and come back to him and say, hey, whether or not I could play the music. So I took the bus over to Branch Brook Park where the orchestra was playing. And that was on Wednesday, July 12th, 1967. Okay, nobody's got that one. And yes, I could play it. So the next day I called Danny. I said, I can play this music. So he said, okay, you are now a member of the Newark Symphony Orchestra. And just so you know, if you don't recognize it yet, July 12th was the night that the Newark Rebellion began. So there we got it. So anyway, that was the beginning of my classical, my career as a classical musician. And I played very little jazz after that. And there's actually, in the sequence of pictures, if Damani can go to the very last picture, you'll see a picture of me in 1967 from the Star Ledger. And trombonist Al Patterson is in the photograph. Another trombonist, Larry Todd, is in the photograph. And then the conductor, whose name I can't remember right now, there. And that was in 1967. So you will see me. That's Al Patterson. Keep going. There we are. That was my first professional union gig as a musician.
Can you walk us through the folks in that picture one more time?
Okay. Al Patterson may be in the house where you are right now. I don't know if he is or not, but that's Al with a trombone. Larry Todd, who was actually also a teacher at Montclair State, is the trombone teacher at Montclair State. And the guy with the bass with the hair on his head and nothing on his face but a mustache, that was me when I was about 21 years old. And I was about 100 pounds lighter than I am right now. And I think in the caption down there, you have the conductor's name. But that was the Newark Symphony Orchestra. That was my first professional gig as a classical musician.
It's George Schwartz, I believe.
Yeah, that's his name. Sure, I'm glad you can read that. I can't read it from here.
Yeah.
800 miles
Okay,
away.
so help us. We haven't brought you up to the point where you encounter Ms. Kirk, but help us because you're having what for many people would be a successful career as a basis. How do you encounter photography? Where do you encounter it? And what prompts you to start to really pursue it?
Okay, well, now we're gonna make a big jump. I was teaching music at Winborne High School. Winborne had a music major program similar to the one at Arts High School. And I had finished my master's in music at Hunter College. And I was a little bored, and there was an opening for an advisor for the school newspaper, the Calumet. So I applied for it, and I got the position. And then we had a photography club at Winborne, and I thought I could get pictures from the photography club to include in a newspaper, and I couldn't. So I figured what I would do is I would go buy a camera. So I bought a camera and I started taking pictures. I had no clue. I just figured you put the film in, you shoot it, and then I would go up 2 blocks from the school to the drugstore and drop it off, and they would develop the film because they had a photographer there in the drugstore. And after a while, that got to be expensive because I was paying for it out of my pocket. And then I remembered downtown Newark, there was a place called Mall Camera. So one day I went in and I said, how do I set up a darkroom? And they sold me a bunch of stuff. And so I went home and I started developing film. And my first film, the first roll of film that I developed was a disaster. After rolling on the floor with laughter at what I had done, I tried a second roll. It was better. And that was just pictures of the football team and things like that around school. But I was also teaching a unit on jazz, and I couldn't find photographs of jazz musicians. So I saw something in the paper about Larry Ridley and some other musicians performing at Rutgers, Newark. And I got my camera and went down and introduced myself to Larry. And I started taking pictures. He said, sure, go right ahead. And he said, oh, by the way, if you want to take some pictures of more jazz musicians, I have a series at Rutgers, New Brunswick on the Piscataway campus at Lucy Stone Hall. And you can come down any Tuesday night you want and take pictures. So I started doing that, taking pictures of, I mean, the who's who, the Heath brothers, Dexter Gordon, right, Ms. Kirk?
Yes.
Oh, never mind.
That
And
photograph
then
was-
I mentioned Dexter Gordon. I thought you were going to jump
Yeah,
up.
well, I started to, that great photograph of me and Dexter that I have displayed at home. You took, and I thank you. But you know how I felt about him. And his-
Yes.
Mhm.
Then I met another jazz musician by the name of Paul West, who's a bass player. Larry Ridley was a bass player. Paul West was running an orchestra program at the Henry Street Sutherland House. I joined that at his invitation. And Paul had also, as a jazz bassist, he knew everybody. And he had what I call the Paul West Jazz Festival. And it was just an incredible number of people that I could photograph, just get up to them, up and close and just take pictures. Carmen McRae, Mongo Santa Maria, you name them, that they were there. And then it just got out of control. And then one day I became aware that WBGO was now a jazz station. I have to also back up and say that WBGO used to be the radio station of the Newark Public Schools. And when in the 6th grade, I was on WBGO for Spell Down. We lost because I couldn't spell mirage. But anyway, that's basically the story of how I got going in photography.
And when did you enter this tale?
He's telling, I think you're leading up to that, right, Mr. Nick?
I'm leading up to it.
Okay, I knew that, because we.
Eventually I will get there. Okay. Well, hearing about WBGO as a jazz station, I said, well, I have a portfolio of stuff. So I went to WBGO, introduced myself to the secretary, and she called Bob Ottenhoff, who was the general manager, and he told her, send him to see Ms. Kirk. And I went to see Ms. Kirk. And she looked at me standing in her doorway and looked at me and was like, who are you and why are you in my doorway? And I said, I take pictures of jazz musicians. Ms. Kirk?
And what did you say when you said, well, I take pictures of jazz?
I don't remember, he'll tell you, but I'm the reason that he had the go-ahead to photograph for WBGO, and it had nothing to do with money. Back then, we didn't have it. And so I thank him because he has a tremendous documentation of WBGO in photographs, among other things, flyers. He really, really has it more than anybody. When I retired, I brought a lot home with me, but I couldn't scratch the surface of what he has. And this is one of the things that keep us in touch. He's archiving and scanning. I'm doing it at home. So that's why we pretty much talk to each other every week, or he'll text me something he ran across. I do it, vice versa. And we've been doing this ever since I retired.
Now, how long between WBGO being formed, or rather, you coming on board, just walking through the park?
Very early on, Mr. May, because we were still upstairs. When we moved into WBGO January 1979 at 54 Park Place, now 54 Wayne Shorter Way. We were upstairs. BGO was 2 levels. We were upstairs in kind of makeshift facility. Downstairs was empty because Bob Ottenhoff had to raise the money so it could be renovated, so we could have proper space down there. So it must have been, it was the early 80s, maybe, Mr. May.
Something like that.
Mhm.
It was not too many years after the station started, because you started up there in Central High School in one of the towers, and then you moved to 54 Park Place. So I came in there about that the first year you were in Park Place.
Right. My very early memory is the 24-hour jazz-a-thon. I don't remember much that you photographed before that, but because that was so popular, and I've seen those posters from it, that was 1982. So it was before that you had started with us.
Yeah. Well, you started calling the school during the day to let me know what was going on. And it so happened that since I was a teacher, at the end of the day, I could get out of bed and come down to WBGO and take pictures of the guests who were on air for interviews. And that would, like Horace Silver with Rhonda Hamilton, and Woody Shaw with Rhonda, and some with Art Vincent, but that later on. So I was able to have that one-on-one contact with musicians as well as the on-air hosts.
Right.
The first jazz-a-thon that Ms. Kirk just referenced was at Fat Tuesdays. Now, I didn't do the full 24 hours because I was still gigging as a musician. So that Saturday night, that when it started, I had a symphony gig that I did in New Jersey. And the next morning, that Sunday morning, I got out of the house by 4 o'clock in the morning and got over to Fat Tuesdays and started taking pictures and stayed there past midnight through that Sunday.
Mr. May,
Yes, Ms. Kirk.
would you just explain what the jazz-a-thon was? Because that's one of those, you wouldn't believe it, but it's actually true. And I don't think it would be attempted to do something like that today. The resources aren't there. But in those days, we did things and we never once thought it wouldn't work.
Mhm.
Because when I talk to some of the former employees now, we'd be cracking up as to how, weren't we crazy? We didn't have sense enough to think it wouldn't work. So tell them how Jazz-a-thon started at Fat Tuesdays at
Mhm.
midnight on a Saturday night in Clark Terry.
And what Fat Tuesdays is for young folks
Oh, okay.
under
It
50.
was on 3rd Avenue in New York. And how long it went, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, I don't remember, but I know we did.
It was from midnight,
Oh, the
Saturday night
Jazz-a-thon.
until
It was
midnight.
midnight to midnight.
It
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, again, a who's who of jazz. Billy Taylor, McCoy Tyner, Michael Berniak. It was just an incredible array of people coming in to play. And from that point, when I got there at about 5 o'clock Sunday morning until midnight, I mean, it was a whole different new portfolio. And again, it was broadcast live. So it was
Yeah.
not something that was done and you just came by, but there were people who paid to come in.
It was. We turned the house over and changed artists every 4 hours.
Mhm.
Admission was $10. And I don't remember, but you may have been required to buy one drink. So every 4 hours, we turned the house over. And this is really the truth. During that whole 24-hour period, including around 6 o'clock Sunday morning, there was a line to get into Fat Tuesday. And
Yeah.
really it was their idea. Mel, who was the owner manager back then, he and Steve Getz, who was Stan Getz' son, was the person that booked the club. Then there was Leah Grammatica, the PR person. They came to us at WBGO with the idea and we bought into it. As Wayne said, it was broadcast. So over the air, if you weren't there in person, you could call in and pledge to WBGO because it was a fundraiser for us. Again, they came to us with the idea. They benefited because it brought people into their club and made people aware of their existence. So that was really phenomenal. 24 hours. And what Bob did, he was the general manager and founder. He rented a hotel room because we only had a small production staff there. And so they would take turns going to the hotel room to sleep. I had friends on Central Park West. So when I got exhausted, I went up there, chilled out for a bit, took a shower, got redressed, and back to Fat Tuesday. No, that's how it was during those days.
There's a documentary called From Newark to the World, done by Chris Daniel. I'm not sure if Chris is in the house. And in the documentary,
He wasn't able to come. He had a previous commitment and was going to try to make it, but he couldn't come.
but yeah, Chris has, it's in the film, it's in the documentary where he talks about it, and Ms. Kirk and other people from WBGO talk about that experience. That was only the first Jazz-a-thon. There were what, 6 or 7, Ms. Kirk, am I correct?
There were several. I don't ask me to remember, but there was
You gotta help me out here.
Some of the places, I guess most of them are going now, Green Street and was it the Savoy and on 43rd Street?
It's a Savoy.
Uh-huh.
We did one in Midtown at the theater.
I
And
can't,
if that picture of Carrie Smith was taken there when we get there, if we get
oh,
there.
okay.
Why
Okay,
why don't we take a look at some of those photos very quickly, if you don't mind? if you don't mind.
Yeah,
okay.
because I'm tired of looking at me. Oh, we saw that one. That's Woody Shaw.
Okay, we're gonna come back. Okay, we'll go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I jumped the gun.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay.
Talk about
and
Woody Shaw.
Okay, Woody, of course, is a Newarker. He started a trumpet at Cleveland Elementary School middle school in Newark, and from there he went to West Kenny when Cleveland was closed down. And his teacher was Jerry Ziering, and I went into West Kenny in the 7th grade, and Woody was already in the 9th grade, and Woody was a star. That, I mean, he was just so far ahead of everybody, including his teacher. Woody also played in a drum and bugle corps in Newark called the George Washington Carver Drum and Bugle Corps. And a little bit of Newark history. It was an incredible organization. They would march in all the parades on Broad Street. They would start at Lincoln. The parade started at Lincoln Park, go right down Broad Street from the south to the north, and end at Washington Park. Somehow the Carver band, Drum and Bugle Corps, I don't know how they traveled, what kind of transportation they had, but at the end of the parade, when it was over, somehow they would come all the way back to the intersection of Spruce Street and then was High Street, but Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, and they would reassemble. And then they would march straight up Spruce Street from High Street all the way up past Belmont Avenue in formation, stopping traffic. And that show, that performance was far better than the entire parade that had taken place on Broad Street. So everybody was really anxious to see that part of the parade. That's the Carver Drum and Bugle Corps. It was beautiful.
And Woody Shaw is considered by many folks the last innovator on trumpet. He was one of the few trumpet players that Miles Davis liked and gave credit to of that generation. It really speaks to the genius that he was. And still, there are very few musicians now who've been able to pick up and play in that style. Who's in this? Who are we looking at here? I think that's Big Nick in the middle, isn't that?
Can you go back to Woody for a minute? Because this
Go back?
Yeah. Woody did not receive his high school diploma from Arts High School. Arts High had a tradition. They had an assembly program every Friday, and a trumpet player was selected to play the call to the colors. It was Woody's turn to play the call to the colors. He played the call to the colors. Then he put a tag on it, a little bebop tag, and that was his last day of high school because the principal suspended him, but he told the principal, I don't care because I'm going to Europe to play with Eric Dolphy.
Oh.
In 1983, I think it was, Woody was awarded a high school diploma through the county of Essex. And somewhere, I think you may have seen a photo in the exhibition of Woody when he received that diploma. So if he's like crying and Lizdell Tufo is with him, that's because he was so happy to finally receive a high school diploma.
Wow, that's
One more piece to confirm that story. For 6 months, from January 2005 to June 2005, I was interim principal at Arts High School. Do you think I went into the records to find out if the story was true. I forgot. I didn't do it. So, but I do have two people who have confirmed the story. But I wanted to see the record for myself.
That's
Okay,
okay.
Big Nick.
Story. Okay, Big Nick.
I'm sure everybody recognizes the two guys on one on the right and one on the left. This is in about 1983 at the Greenwich Village Jazz Festival. And you'll notice that Winton and Branford, they're skinny. This was in the early days. I guess they were both still living in Brooklyn. And Big Nick was a tenor saxophonist. And he's known for, first of all, as a great player, but he was also, during his life, as he got older, he mentored so many young musicians coming into New York. And so you see this happy smile here. And there you have it. That's the quick story on that one.
And what year is this, do you think?
1983. It was the Greenwich Village Jazz Festival.
Okay, look, both Branford and Winton actually lived, remember the building on Bleecker Street where Art Blakey lived?
I don't remember that
From
one.
the jazz forum. Both Branford and Winton lived in that building. I know because it was a flop house for all of the guys of our generation. If you went over there, Sheila Anderson, you never knew, you had to step over bodies to get around. All of these guys that were later, and women, not many women sitting on the floor, but folks would just crash. And a lot of these folks now are famous jazz musicians, Kevin Eubanks and others. It's a lot of great time. That is a great photo.
Okay.
And this
is a Newark icon who's still alive, Meredith Honey Gordon. Honey was her nickname. Her first name is Meredith, and Gordon. But there was a family of the Gordons, and somehow I have a set of photographs from a recording session with the Gordon family with Dizzy Gillespie. This was taken at what used to be Ebony Manor, and now it's the Universal Church on Clinton Avenue, 100 Clinton Avenue. And it was a fundraiser for a church on South Orange Avenue that had jazz vespers, a Presbyterian church. I'm turning pages here, looking at my notes. The Memorial West Presbyterian Church, right on the corner of South Orange Avenue and South 7th Street. So again, a fundraiser for jazz vespers. We're now looking at Harold Chinkwing, C-H-I-N-K, and it was called Chinkwing. You know, everybody left out the Harold. You could tell that he was quite a snazzy dresser, but he was also the director of music for the city of Newark out of City Hall under the former mayor, Ken Gibson. Even though he's a drummer and he's probably of the appropriate age, he's not one of what was called the Newark elders, that we may see some of those photos in a bit. Al Patterson, I mentioned his name before. Al is listed as a jazz elder. And what might you say is that? Well, there's a group of African-American musicians who go back to the club years in Newark and the dance band years at Newark that go back into the 30s. Well, Al was born in the 30s, but he came along at the tail end of that era. And here he is performing in 1985 in the first floor of WBGO before the renovations. And this was a fundraiser, an event sponsored by the Newark Jazz Society. I don't know if Ms. Kirk wants to make any comments about this, but.
Well, yeah, I can chime in just to kind of share with the audience. Again, WBGO was on 2 floors, and the first floor started being used for different kinds of events. Bob Odenhoff, the founder of WBGO, and I say this every time something about BGO comes up and it's appropriate, he was just such a visionary So we started using downstairs for different events. Jimmy McGriff and Maxine Harvard, who was his manager, founded the Newark Jazz Society back then. I was a member of it, and we used to produce different jazz events, and some of them were held right there on the first floor of WBGO, along with other things that WBGO used to produce for its own benefit. So that's where that was.
And it's also important to know before I forget or Ms. Kirk forgets that 54 Park Place, and probably just that first floor where Al is shown in his photograph, used to be called the Club Dubonnet.
I forgot to say that.
Go ahead, and who? Go for it, Ms. Kirk.
No, it was originally the Club Dubonnet. I think it was a furniture warehouse. The Club Dubonnet eventually moved next door. So BGO was supposed to be in that particular facility. I don't know why, but it was supposed to.
Art Tatum played there, so the spirit of jazz was there long before WBGO got there.
Right.
This is easy to see. That's Eubie Blake on your left and Count Basie on your right. This was up at Waterloo Village. The New Jersey Jazz Society had its annual June jazz thing. And this was in about 1976. And a few months before this, I was out taking pictures at a fashion show. And I heard this voice behind me saying, "You don't know what you're doing." And I turned around, and it was a high school buddy of mine by the name of Dwight Johnson. And Dwight was a photographer for the Star Ledger. And he said, "I'm going to show you how to take pictures." And he, that following, maybe a week or so later, he gave me a call at about 6 o'clock in the morning. He said, "I'm picking you up at 7 o'clock. We're going to take pictures." And so this is how this picture came about, because he said, "I'm covering this event, the New Jersey Jazz Society for the Star Ledger. Come along since you like jazz." And that's how I got this picture of Eubie Blake and Count Basie. Dwight went on to become the chief photographer for Don King Productions. And he called me to be his assistant. And so there I go again in my summers and my evenings on weekends, following Dwight around, photographing Larry Holmes, Muhammad Ali, and Don King, and all of that stuff. And so Dwight played a very critical role in my development as a photographer. He passed 3 years ago. So,
And at this point, when you take this picture, how long had you been a photographer at this point?
3 years.
3 years. And you're leaving out, I think if this is true, you're leaving out a key part of the story. You decided to take photographs yourself. You went and bought a camera.
Right.
Took it to the drugstore to be developed. After doing that a couple of times, which is too expensive, you decided, I can do this myself. And you first made your own darkroom. Is that true?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
You made your own darkroom, and then you went and studied. You spent time somewhere reading books about photography. Is that true?
The Newark Public Library, 770.
Yeah, and you would spend a lot of time. You'd get books and look at pictures, and you literally taught yourself to take photographs.
Yeah,
That's
well,
the story.
Dwight
Absolutely.
played a major role. Yeah. But okay.
No, finish that thought.
Before we get to Mo Group, I had just bought a new camera. I had just bought my first twin lens camera. It was a medium format camera, and that was my first time using the camera. So, and I had learned how to develop film, so I developed that and did the prints.
Yeah, are you talking about this photo or the previous one?
The previous photo.
The previous one. You had just bought a camera, a different camera for this
The
photo,
Maya C330.
and you developed this yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely extraordinary. Okay, who is this and where is it?
That's Mulgrew Miller. Mulgrew, what is it? Blackwood, Mississippi, same place as, what's her name?
Finest Newborn.
What is it?
I think it's either Finest or Harold Mayburn.
Them two, but Cassandra Wilson.
Oh, Cassandra, right.
Cassandra Wilson. This is in the Colonnade Apartments up there on Clifton Avenue. And as you look back there, you see the Newark skyline. And well, you can't see the Newark Public Library because it's behind Mulgrew over his right shoulder. But Mulgrew had moved into the building, and I knew him, and I said, hey, can I come over? And you know, I lived in the building also. I said, can I do some photographs with me? And by this time I had gone big time. I had bought myself a Hasselblad, and I had my whole lighting equipment and umbrella and all that stuff. So that's what I did.
And is Mulgrew with Art Blakey at this point?
Yes, he was. He was also with Bobby Watson at that time also.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I found out that Mulgrew was in the building is because I kept getting phone calls and people leaving messages on my answering machine for Mulgrew Miller. And I knew that I took all of these messages down, and because I knew I was going to see Mulgrew that week at a recording session with Bobby. And when Mulgrew came in, he saw me, he started laughing. He said, you've been getting a lot of phone calls. I said, yeah. He said, well, I don't have a telephone, so I told people to call you. David Eubanks. Oh boy, this is in the same Newark Jazz Society, first floor of 54 Park Place. David was actually a student of mine. He was a student at Arts High School, and I was teaching music in a Saturday morning program in Newark. And that's how David became a student of mine. And he just couldn't understand why he needed to learn how to read music. So a few years later, when I saw him and heard him with Dexter Gordon, and I said to myself, well, this guy doesn't even know how to read music the way he played. Such a tremendous ear. I mean, he could just hear the changes before, you know, a split second, and we're right on time with the changes. So I don't know if he ever expanded his ability to read, but he was quite a bassist. A tragic end. He drowned in a swimming pool in Montclair.
Very young.
But
and part of a great jazz family. Do you?
Right, of the Eubanks family, absolutely.
Mr. May, I see someone in the audience, and when the time comes, they might want to comment on those days that we had those events of the deal that we said.
Go right ahead.
It occurred to me, maybe it's not time for audience participation. I don't want to throw the program.
It is if you say.
Oh, thank you. I was speaking specifically about Bobby Watson.
Yes.
And I see one of the, as people in New Jersey called me too, one of the twins that was around there. Would you like to comment?
Was it Douglas or Darrell Jeffries?
Yeah, I'm asking you. He's in charge.
Juana, you can take this mic.
I'm
We're gonna get some comments and questions from the audience now. It's gonna be led by Mr. Jeffries. Mr. Jeffries, please say who you are and why in the world anyone would ask you to comment right now. Is it on?
Hello, hello.
Here we go.
Yeah, Doug Jeffries of the Jeffries twins from East Orange. And actually, Bill May was the chronicler of the era back in the 70s when my brother and myself were promoting here in the Newark and the Oranges. And we used to grab cats when they were in the New York area, like Bobby Watson, Curtis Lundy. But we also worked with the local local cats, Dave Eubanks as well, on many dates. We had Cassandra Wilson, a lot of people back in the day, and we were privileged and fortunate to be visionaries. We created the group called Horizon, which was Bobby Watson. These cats were the disciples of Art Blakey, Betty Carter. They were the future back in the 70s. They're the masters now. And, you know, Bill May was the integral part of chronicling the history of the era. And the spirit is still there and the history is there. You know, I see Chris White's wife here, and it was a tremendous, rich era, which has been sustained and carried forth. And we have the new birth and continue the legacy of the masters. And we're privileged to still be a part of it. And Dorthaan has been the queen in the area, but we've all been missionaries on the scene. And Bill May was our chronicler and historian. And I mean, it's just, all of it is our history. And we kudos to Bill May for being a visionary chronicler of the history. So that's my brief, but you know, I could go on and on, but I won't. Leave it at that.
And Douglas, you sold me a BMW, right?
I'm sorry, say that again, Bill.
Doug sold me a BMW.
But you have to add one more sentence because it sounds like it might have been a lemon. It was, I hope it was.
No. It was beautiful. I mean, I drove it to the school. I parked in front of the school. Actually, I parked it on the sidewalk in front of the school, across the street.
Well, it's BMW is going to have to sponsor this if you're going to do a commercial, Mr. Jeffrey.
I just thought I would, you know.
That means you can't get a free commercial now. You're going to have to sponsor the library. So if you can donate a car for them to auction off, we'd appreciate it.
I'll send them a picture of the car.
Mr. May, just I want to do a quick segue before we ask for what's important about this is that one of the many things I think Doug touched on this, and both of you all, you have provided such a wonderful bridge between the masters of this music and in the case of U.B. Blake, you're talking about one of the originators of this music, and what was then the next generation with the Eubanks family. For folks who don't know, again, it had a tragic end, but Kevin Eubanks, folks, many of you will know, he was at one point music director on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. Branford had the gig at first, but then they got handed over to Kevin Eubanks. Robin Eubanks, one of the finest trombonists on the planet right now, is a longstanding member of the San Francisco Jazz Collective. You'll see him at times. He does a lot of commercial work. So again, you all clearly had a vision, not just of the musicians that you liked and that were contemporaries when you were younger, but also that next generation. We mentioned Mulgrew a minute ago. Mulgrew was not a big name star at that point. In the jazz world, he was, and would go on to me, he still hasn't gotten his flowers as he should. But he was, for you all to have locked in on him at that point, and for you to have the vision to take phone messages for him is pretty cool. Pretty cool right there.
Right.
Okay, take a look at this photo and see if you can recall who this could possibly be.
All right. Well, of course, everybody knows that's Amiri Baraka in front and his wife Amina with him. And this was in this is a Doug and Daryl Jeffries production. They arranged for the late Johnny Hartman to perform at a club in East Orange, the Club Evergreen. And Amiri and Amina came to the performance, and I was taking pictures. So I took a picture.
That was,
I
was there. Mhm.
Yeah. And at one point, I owned a house diagonally across the street from the Barakas on South 10th Street. So we were neighbors.
Is Billy in the house still? Who was that? 88 Evergreen. Yeah, he was here earlier. He may have
Just
left. Okay, so much for that, but he was involved with 88 Evergreen as well. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Isn't that the trumpet player between Hamp and Mayor Gibson? Isn't that Byron? What's his name?
Different.
Yeah, but this is the was it Tipsy Bean on drum over Lionel's right shoulder on drums?
I don't,
Okay, but anyway, but this is
I'm not sure.
this is in Newark, and this was actually in front of the community center for the South Ward councilman. As soon as I can remember, I can't remember his name. It'll come to, I have my notes here, I cheat. I did my homework, looked at my files. But the whole idea was here that this was an opening. This was Donald Tucker, who was councilman to South Ward. This was right in front of his headquarters. But this was the groundbreaking for a set of apartments on Elizabeth Avenue, the Hamp Valley Apartments, right there on Elizabeth Avenue, and that was in 1983. And for those of you who may not be aware, Ken Gibson was a jazz saxophonist. He and Wayne Shorter, Wayne's brother, and a whole bunch of, they all came up together in the Newark Public Schools. Ken Gibson played alto saxophone. He was an incredibly great reader of music. And he said to me when I interviewed him a number of years ago, a video interview, he said he didn't pursue it because he couldn't improvise. So he went on to become an engineer and Newark's first African-American mayor. Lionel Hampton was always Lionel Hampton.
A great band leader.
There's Carrie Smith. This was taken at again, at the WBGO Jazzathon. I can't remember the theater in Midtown.
Was it the Ritz, Mr. May?
The Ritz, that's what it was, the Ritz, yes, yes.
You know, because Michelle Petrucciani was there, and something that I certainly wouldn't talk about happened there, but it kept on going. Two of my two daughters are in the house, and my granddaughter that was with me. I guess you took that picture. Do you remember that of me and my family? I have it.
Yeah,
And they were there for that particular jazzathon, because they used to, back then, they used to hang out with me and go to the different events and clubs, but eventually, I guess they got sick of me. I'm looking at Yolanda playing with her phone. And well, really, they created their own lives, but after our son died, they still went places with me, and they have a rich history of jazz, but they were there for that particular jazz. It was the Ritz. I don't know how I remember that. Mhm.
And
remember James Brown had to take carry Michelle.
yes. The WBGO James Brown, not the Georgia.
Because he had that disease, but I don't know what you call it, but boy, could he play. French pianist, Michelle Petrucciani.
Oh, yeah, yes, Michelle Petrucciani, yes.
And James Brown was a WBGO employee, not
this
that
James.
James Brown, just to be.
He was on their personality at WBGO for years. He later would own Jazz Club Sweet River.
Yes.
But Mr. May, go ahead, please.
I was going to say, Carrie is from Newark, and she used to sing lead with the back home choir, the Abyssinian Church, Baptist Church, and then she went big time because she could do it. And she did some Broadway work.
I worked with Carrie a lot, and she was great, and it's too much to go into. I'm looking at the clock, but when she died, the person that helped her all those years came to me and said she'd like to have her memorialized at Bethany
Mm.
And it happened, and I don't know what you call it, but I guess I hosted whatever you do up there. So I was with her until the very end, and she never, ever said no, much like most of the musicians, never about the dollar. So that's how I've been able to do all the things that I've been able to do.
Well,
I don't know who else they do that for.
No
Maybe
one.
Sheila,
No one.
maybe Sheila.
Maybe.
Sheila Anderson, who is an on-air host announcer at WBGO, and she also produces different events in New Jersey. She's very connected, doing different things in New York. They might do it for her. Do they, Sheila?
Maybe
Okay.
for Sheila. She's
I
the only one.
thought so.
Talking about the Jazz Vespers, and
so
it's really her reputation that gets all of these great musicians to come and play, and for way below scale, and they always bring their best. And y'all might think that she's reading Sheila's bio. She's not. She's playing crossword puzzle
No, I'm not.
while she recites Sheila's bio. Pretty amazing.
I'm leaving her my legacy to walk in my footsteps, not a whole, everybody knows it.
And so since we've been talking about Sheila, and Sheila, why don't you ask the question? You must have some. Reggie, could we get Sheila Anderson the microphone? She's an on-air personality. She's used to being put on the spot. Don't worry about it. She's thinking of a question now. Slowly.
We'll come back to her.
Did you ever attend any of the Jazz-a-thon?
Yes, I did. I started volunteering at WBGO in 1987 and did my first air shift February 14th, 1995. So I've been around BGO and of course, Mr. May has been around as well. And Bill used to come and take pictures at the Newark Museum. I curate Jazz in the Garden, and actually I have a picture. Thank you, Ms. Kirk, for one of the picture of me and Tootie that you took at the Newark Museum. So I thank you for that. It's hanging on my wall. So my question is, I guess when it came to passion, did you have equal amount of passion for photography as you did for playing, or there's no way to really distinguish your passion for, because you have an eye. I mean, I studied photography and I had my own
Dark room.
thank you, dark room, and I realized early on that I really wasn't good at it, because when I would look at develop these pictures going, that's not what I wanted to take. So I mean, there's you clearly have an eye. So I guess as far as passion, is it equal to your playing?
It's equal. Yeah, it's equal. It's if it's worth doing, it's worth doing with passion and enjoyment. I mean, I really enjoy taking pictures, and I enjoy playing the bass or listening to music. It's just a part of me. And so without it, it's like, why be here?
Other questions or comments in the audience? Right behind you.
First of all, Bill, I just want you to know how thrilled I am to see this exhibit and to see the kind of exposure that you've long deserved. Like Sheila, I started out as a volunteer at WBGO when they were upstairs. And so I was there when they were downstairs using that space. And it was always like extended family to see you there. You know, all the people that you mentioned, Bobby Watson and Carmen Lundy and her brother and Mary, everybody performing, and you would always have these pictures and be taking pictures. And when I moved away, I loved your calendars that you put out. And it's been so many years. So to come back to New Jersey and to live here and to see something like this mounted in the library where it deserves this kind of exposure during Black History Month, and to see you and to get a lot of the backstory that you don't necessarily know about a person. You know, it's just wonderful. I'm so glad that they've done it. I'm glad that you did it, and I'm glad for the opportunity to get more education and exposure about your background.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Third row from the front, right, swell, fourth row.
Want to change the picture of Carrie? Oh, keep
Good
going.
evening, everyone.
Go that one.
Could you hear me? Oh, okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Isaiah McLean. I'm a former employee at WBGL. I started working there back in 2012, actually. I started as a volunteer, and I was there for 7 years until last year. I was the marketing coordinator at WBGL, and I worked closely with Mrs. Kirk, my godmother, in the marketing department. And I got the opportunity to meet Mr. May during the art exhibit. And I wasn't a photographer at the time, but when you work in a nonprofit and you work in a nonprofit, sometimes you have like different tasks and things. And one of the tasks for me was to take pictures for the organization. And I never forget, Mrs. Kirk introduced me to Mr. May, and we did his exhibit. And I said, well, I can never shoot like this man because he's great. And his pictures was just amazing. And I see like 8 years ago, those many years ago, I'm like, wow, I'm a photographer now, and my work has really, been featured in different places. But if it wasn't for his photography and Tony Gray, I think he's in that building too. If it wasn't for Tony and Mr. May, those were my examples when I was shooting, because I didn't know how to, work a camera or anything. But it's just an honor just to be around, greatness and developing throughout the year. So I appreciate you, Mr. May, and thank you. So I don't have any questions to ask you, but I do want to just thank you. I thought you'd be here tonight when I was driving down here. I said, oh, I can't wait to just, thank him. And then they said, well, yeah, you can thank him all right, but he's going to be on Zoom tonight.
Well, thank you for the comments, Isaiah.
But I appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some of your work. So you have my email, send me something.
I sure will.
Thank you, Isaiah, because we need young people to pick up the ball and carry it on. And I'm very proud of it. In addition to my biological children, as some people in this room, I have a bunch of platonic children. I think, and my kids all love them. I don't think, but I'm always trying to encourage the youth, and that's whether it's to support jazz and the arts or whatever it is, because they are the adults and the people of tomorrow who will carry on. Because me and Mr. May have done ours. You're not finished though. Mr. May and I have done it. So it's up to the next 2-3 generations.
Okay, in the back.
Yes, good evening. Daryl Jeffries, the other half of the Jeffries twins, the Jazz twins. Bill,
Yes, sir.
this is your evening. So proud to be here this evening to celebrate your extraordinary legacy, chronicling the great artists here on the Newark jazz scene, Essex County jazz scene, New Jersey jazz scene. You were a constant companion with us back during the late 70s, early 80s, 90s. Crossroads East Productions, we're representing Bobby Watson, Curtis Lundy. We brought the band Fourth Horizon at that time, and Mulgrew Mill. We had many. It was a small Buhana University. It was the, you know, it was the equivalent at that time. But we traveled, even I know this is Newark centric. We traveled to do a gig in Philadelphia on Rittenhouse Square.
Yep.
On that date with Bobby Watson and Curtis Lundy was a 17-year-old Wynton Marsalis. You got that shot too. And there's so many artists. Robin Eubanks, I've heard Dave Eubanks already, but there's so many other Newark artists that we represented at the time. And we had a band also representing at that time, Sabu, with Carl Guthrie on piano, Rick Reed on drums, Cook Green. We had Kenny Sheffield, Newark trumpeter, Kenny Sheffield.
Yes.
Many. You chronicled so much of what we did during that era, and we hopefully will write a book sometime together about that era. We did the grand opening in 1982, May of 82, of 88 Evergreen Place at that time. It was the grand opening, and we brought Johnny Hartman, as well as, beg your pardon? Oh, Carmen Lundy was on the date. That was part of the Horizon band.
Yeah.
Right. Hold on. Right.
They keep making, for those who don't, you have to consider that there are some folks who are under the age of, I said 50 earlier.
Right.
The Horizon Band was a very important band in the development of jazz. It was led by Bobby Watson and Curtis Lundy. And among other things, he mentioned Wynton Marsalis. There was also, I think Bobby's credited with, although people knew him down in Texas, from where you're from, there's also another young trumpet player, Roy Hargrove, who went on to become a giant, passed away way too young. For people who don't know Roy Hargrove, if you have D'Angelo's Voodoo album, Roy Hargrove did the horn arrangements and he's the trumpet player on D'Angelo's seminal, in terms of Black music, Voodoo record. So there are these threads that get woven into this broader tapestry, and jazz is at the center of it. Newark is at the center of it, and Mr. May's photographs chronicled
Yes.
so much of it. So,
and we opened the back in the early 80s. We opened the noontime jazz series on PSE&G Plaza.
Yes.
We had an engagement with Bobby Watson, Curtis, but the featured trumpeter that day was Woody Shaw.
Yep.
And so, you know, we've had so many, Houston person, Etta Jones, saxophonist Jimmy Anderson. There's so many artists that Jackie Jones, vocalist, many artists that we've represented over the years that Bill has chronicled. So we're so glad to be part of the celebration of your extraordinary legacy.
Thank you, sir. Did you send me a friend request on Facebook?
I'm sorry, Mr. May, say that again. We would clap.
Ask Daryl that he sent me a friend request on Facebook.
Did I send a friend request on Facebook?
Yeah, to me, yeah.
We'll send another one. Yeah, we'll
don't
take care of that. Okay.
No, I just want to make sure, because I confirm, because I don't say yes unless I know the person has really sent it. Many hackers out there.
It may not have been him. That may not have been him. Any other questions?
Norman, do you want to say something? When I saw you earlier, I swear I couldn't remember your name. My daughter texted me because they went to high school together.
It's in the back.
I really couldn't remember your name, but I recognized the face. I did say hello. Yeah.
This is my memory. We were in your art show. We did it at the WBGO. It was 2007. We did our Katrina project there. So we go back and forth for the last 18, almost 20 years, still go back to New Orleans and cover and shoot our Katrina project. So that's what we had there. And now we'll be here on the 15th, showing some of that, some art, some sports stuff, all kind of stuff that we'll be here.
We're going to be watching this on YouTube later. Just identify yourself and tell us what you're talking about. And hold the microphone up.
I got the wrong person talking. I'm Norman Deshawn, freelance photographer from Newark. we'll be here on the 15th, doing our project here, showing some of our artwork here in the library. So we really appreciate you guys having us here on the 15th. I appreciate being here, and Bill know who I am because you see me at NJ-PAC. I've been working at NJ-PAC for 21 years, photographer there. So where you at, Bill? Oh, you can't see me. You only got one side. I'm on the wrong side. You got to go on the other side of the eye so you can see me. You hear me? Bill. So you
Which
fell
Bill? You
asleep.
talking to me?
Yeah, you only yes.
I'm looking at the screen. You're looking at the
You're
wrong-
supposed to be looking at me. How you looking at the screen?
I'm looking at you on the screen. You're looking
right,
at the
how's
wrong.
this way?
At your back. Now I see
That
your
work?
face.
Now
Yeah,
you see?
I thought you were talking to somebody else.
I'm talking to you.
All right, now I know. It was like, yeah, look,
I
can't-
know he helped me out one time at NJ-PAC shoot when I was doing some photographs there. So you know who you can see me?
I can see you now.
All right, I'll smile. That's the only time you probably recognize me when I smile. That's it.
Yeah, I'm seeing your profile now. If you
Oh,
touch
all right. You got
Yeah,
it.
okay.
Right. So he
I can
helped
see
me
it.
out. He helped me out a lot at NJ-PAC with certain photography stuff, especially doing the jazz for kids, all their stuff. So that's what I was been doing over there with them. So, but come out on the 15th. I'm glad to be here today. It'll be Doug and myself will be here. So we'll be showing stuff from Katrina, showing stuff, celebrity stuff, sports stuff. So all kinds of stuff. We'll be here doing that. All right. And I'll be over for dinner, Miss Hurley.
Our time is growing short. Is there any other question or comment from anyone? It's been a marvelous evening. Mr. May, thank you so much for joining us from
Kentucky.
the great state of Kentucky. I hope you, if you have some bourbon there, did we just lose him? Is he still there? I'll save my.
Yeah, I'm still here.
I was gonna say, if you are a participant of the,
Okay, I'll help you out. You have to get your own.
spirits, the spirit known as bourbon, for which Kentucky is well known. Enjoy yourself. This has been a real treat for us. I don't know if you're going to get a chance to see the exhibit. It's marvelous. It's a beautiful cross section of the work that you've done and the artists that you've captured, as well as the great city. Here, there is a focus on Newark for good reason, but that's still allowed for so much wonderful diversity in pictures. And thank you for your work. No, you're not done, because we want to see that book, that coffee table book. And Lady K, thank you so very much for joining us, for letting us sit in. I'm being too familiar. I'm sorry. Mrs. Kirk.
You can be just. who you
Sadly,
We
I
love
am.
all of the Waynes.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Ms. Kirk.
Definitely thank you to the folks here at the library. Reggie, this is, please tell people about this exhibit and all of the things that are going on. Newark Public Library this month during Black History Month. If you don't know it, don't think about it. This is a very dynamic space. It's a community resource. This is not our parents' library. This is a living, breathing community resource that reaches out to all of the communities in Newark. They do great things here. Please, please, please tell people about it. Come if you haven't come, check out what they're doing. If you get the time, stop by Clement's Place next door. We have live music typically Wednesday through Saturday. We do a lot of stuff. Come by the Institute of Jazz Studies. It's been a real honor to be here with you at this opening of Black History Month. Thank you all so very much. And I'm gonna turn it over to Reggie Blander.
Thank you. Actually, yes, thank you, Ms. Kirk. Thank you, Wayne. Always a pleasure just to be in your presence, hear you speak. Mr. May, we appreciate you. This was, honestly, we could do this for 2 more hours, but I don't think